What is up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the Meaning of Podcast. My name is Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we get into the deeper meaning of your favorite filmmakers working in Hollywood today. And today's episode, we are doing an all Q&A episode because we care about you guys. We love you guys. We want to make sure we give you guys shout outs. We're going to mispronounce your names. We're going to read your questions. We're going to disagree heavily with you. But that's okay because we just came back from Thanksgiving break. It was a fun time with the family. It was delicious. It was peaceful. It was relaxing. It was everything I needed. What about you, RB3?
It was a great break, man. I'm always happy to eat some good turkey, fried turkey, mashed potatoes.
You watch any football?
Football, yeah. But it is what it is. But I'm happy. You know, macaroni and cheese. What do you normally eat on Thanksgiving, man? Because
it's surprisingly for a family that is hardcore Latino. A lot of people are like tamales and freaking all this Mexican stuff, but no, man, my mom's Colombian, so we eat Colombian stuff. But to be honest, it's mainly just like pretty basic, like turkey and gravy and fruit and bread.
I mentioned macaroni and cheese to you.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, on the schmoes.
And you're like, I don't know about that, man. So is that? I always, to me, that was always normal.
I don't know, man. Mac and cheese was never kind of my. I loved mac and cheese as a kid, but right now, it's just. It's like, it's hardcore, man. Like, if I'm gonna eat some mac and cheese, that's kind of like all I'm eating for the, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
like, that shit's
right.
not a side.
Right.
People eat that as a side, where I'm like, man, that's a good meal right there.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that's a
man,
filling
meal. I mean, macaroni. You really don't get better than the mixture of that. You know, especially if it's baked. I mean, I come from like a southern kind of family, so
sure.
We fry our turkeys. We do mac and cheese, we do yams, we do like all like the southern like peach cobbler, you know, sweet potato pie, like all that kind of stuff. Like it's
good stuff, man.
It's good there, man.
Let's just do an all food podcast, guys. We just talked to you about food to make you hungry. Anyways, guys, we want to make sure and take your guys' questions today. I made a post a little bit while back on Schmoville talking about taking your guys' questions. So I'm going to be reading based off Schmoville. We're also going to be reading based on Twitter questions that RB3 tweeted out a little bit ago. And we want to take the time to appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so far for listening to us. We started this back in September, and so far we've had a pretty good response. Some episodes do better than others. Some directors do better than others as far as conversation. We started out with Aronofsky, and now we're doing a Q&A because we love you guys, and we want to say thank you. And Magneto was right. # Magneto was right. Anyways, I want to start out this conversation kind of by talking a little bit about 2017 and about like blockbuster and indie films. But basically, I want to base it off this question I got in Schmoville a while back by, I'm going to mispronounce your name, Rishab Vashitha, who says, hello. Obviously, the remainder of the year will be jam-packed with several blockbuster releases, but we also get the annual influx of indie films. Personally, I'm really looking forward to James Franco's The Disaster Artist and Sean Baker's The Florida Project. What are the indie films you guys are looking forward to? And based off this question, I want to kind of make it the central theme of the conversation, at least for the first 10 minutes or 5 minutes of the episode.
Right.
Based off like what we've seen this year, because we tend to divide filmmaking with
the
blockbuster movies and indie films. Two types of films that I have a connection to, because as you guys know, I do the indie movie segment on Schmoes now as much as I can because I don't do it too often. But I love indie films. I think indie films are the ones that need the attention, that need the money, that need the views, that really are what impact people nowadays the most. And I know that large blockbusters hit a larger audience, so they hit international audiences better than small indie films. And small indie films might be a little close to home as far as the themes they're hitting on. However, I feel like indie films, at the end of the day, are more important. And deliver themes and deliver questions and deliver movies that are simply better as far as like well done and stuff like that. But that's just an opinion that I have. I still love blockbuster films, but I kind of want to take a look back at 2017 as far as what we've seen so far in blockbuster films and what we've seen so far in indie films and what we're eventually going to see. Because to be honest, guys, I'm behind. I'm very behind on indie films, and I have to catch up real quick, which I'm going to do this week. But I want to hear your thoughts, RB3, as far as like favorite films of 2017. Have you noticed that a lot of them are blockbusters now? That your favorite films this year, like if someone asked you, what are your favorite films so far? You kind of name some blockbusters, which is kind of surprising because usually at this point I would name a lot of indie films that are my favorite. At this point last year I would. So as far as like 2017, what kind of like blockbuster films hit you, and how do you feel they've done so far as far as big movies?
Right. I mean, big movies wise, movies like Dunkirk have done something really interesting for me. Okja.
Okja.
Yeah, Okja. Yeah, that's a film that's not a blockbuster, but it was released through Netflix. But it comes from an acclaimed, foreign director. I love that movie so much. But even though Get Out is a film that's not independently produced, but low budget, it's still a blockbuster in terms of it made blockbuster types of money.
That's a great point.
So to me, that's a film that I enjoyed a lot. I haven't seen Warfare Planet of the Apes, but I heard that was really well done. Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Looking forward to, man.
That's a movie that I think is an auteur director coming into Star Wars universe. First time that we've probably seen since Empire Strikes Back, really. And that movie I think has a real potential. Logan is another one that, again, another art house director, James Mangold, coming into a superhero franchise.
And Logan's an interesting one too, because it's not quite a blockbuster, because it's not a huge budget. It's not even normal.
Right.
It's more of a mid-level budget, right? It costs like
Right.
40-something mil or 50-something mil,
Yeah,
which is
50,
like
yeah.
mid-level
Yeah.
kind of budget movie, not the usual 120 to 180 to $200 million
X-Men
movie.
Yeah, but again, that's something that resonates as a blockbuster with a lot of people. Made just almost about the same amount opening weekend as Justice League,
Sure.
right? So it technically constitutes a block. And again, I think that's the new era that we're living in, is bringing in a lot of these indie directors. I mean, we see it even to big Marvel movies like, Thor Ragnarok or Guardians of the Galaxy or, Spider-Man Homecoming. All of them were indie directors. James Gunn was a guy who, coming off of really Super, was his most recent film before Guardians of the Galaxy. Spider-Man Homecoming, directed by John Watts, who previously directed Cop Car. And even, Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi, a huge indie name. One of the most highly regarded independent filmmakers, whether that be What We Do in the Shadows, to Hunt for the Wilder People, to now Thor Ragnarok. But incorporating these indie directors for their storytelling abilities into these blockbuster franchises is what bringing a lot of highly acclaimed blockbusters. That's not to say that there aren't a lot of bad blockbusters that came out in 2017.
Do you feel like that's kind of why we've had an influx of quality blockbuster movies, is because of the directors behind it are more, their indie background kind of gives them a leg up as far as delivering quality first in story, second visual effects and action scenes?
Right. I think that's exactly what it is. And there's also something to be said about just the complete diminish of the middle budget movie.
Sure.
We don't see a lot of medium budget stuff, whether that be 50 to, or really like 40, $20 million budgets. Kind of, that's really where
40, 50,
60,
70.
yeah, even,
kinda.
but when you start getting into like 80, 90, to me, that's considered very, very high budget.
It's pretty high.
But the mid-budget movies aren't really there. The only really movies that are coming out of that lane are like R-rated comedies and, not really a lot. So, a lot of indie directors used to be the path of, let's do a small indie movie, do a couple of those, then do a couple medium budget ones, and then you build your way up to the big hard hitters.
Sure.
And that's kind of the way, see filmmakers like Nolan kind of building their way up to the top and,
Sure.
and stuff like that. But that kind of era is gone. So now the indie directors are just going straight to the blockbusters.
Sure.
And that's how a lot of what we've become familiar with happens.
Do you feel like if I asked you right now your favorite movies of the year, you would say a huge majority of them are blockbusters?
Yes and no. I think I haven't seen a lot of the big indies yet.
But that's always a big point, right? Because
Right.
that's going to be my answer too, is the fact that, to be honest, I've said this before, I'm behind on indies.
Yeah.
I'm real behind on indies.
I gotta check
I
out
gotta
Lady
catch
Bird.
up. Lady Bird, Three Billboards Outside of Billings,
Mm-hmm.
Missouri is one that I haven't seen. Oops, it's been out, but sorry guys, I haven't seen it.
Florida Project is one
I
that's been
saw that
out.
one.
I haven't seen that. I really want to see that. And I know they addressed that in the original question with Florida Project.
Disaster Riders is one I'm seeing. Probably
oh,
later,
dude.
maybe later this week. I
Dude,
don't know.
that is one I've been raving about this movie. I told
I
you
can't
this.
wait for that movie.
I read the audiobook for it, and if you know, don't even even if you don't see the movie, get the audiobook, because the audiobook, what it is written by not Tommy Wiseau, but George Sestero, the other main guy
In the
involved
movie, yeah.
in the room, and it's all him telling these stories, but he narrates himself, and he does a spot on Tommy Wiseau impression.
Wow.
It is nuts, and it is like it is him reading the book, is the main guy reading the book, but it's also Tommy having this conversations with himself, basically. Like
Yeah.
it's great. So seeing that actually portrayed in the movie, and having the whole like nuttiness of James Franco writing and directing it himself the same way Tommy Wiseau did the original, but then casting his brother to play Greg, and like Seth Rogen playing the AD, the second director, which when you read the book, is a very significant part
Sure,
of the
of
production
course.
of that movie. So it's so great. I cannot wait to see this.
Yeah, there's so many movies that are coming out that I cannot wait. But to be fair to my former question that I asked, which is, did you notice that some of your favorite films of 2017 are blockbusters? I think your favorite one so far is Dunkirk.
Dunkirk,
That's
that's a big
definitely
blockbuster.
a blockbuster,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and again, that's I think that's where the genre has to. That's where blockbusters have to go. They have to get more experimental. They have to get more director driven, and that's something that, even though it's a blockbuster, is so completely Christopher Nolan's unabashed vision. And that's the beauty of having somebody who is like a Nolan, one of the greatest directors working like of our time,
Yeah.
getting a big budget to do a movie like Dunkirk, and just completely doing something revolutionary, to me at least. So,
Yeah, and one thing about 2017 too, talking about blockbuster movies, is the fact that we've gotten a lot of really good superhero movies,
Yeah.
which is usually not. Usually we get one good, one bad, one good, one bad in a year. This year though,
there's like 7 good ones.
we've got really good
Yeah, or
ones.
6.
What are some of your favorites, and what do you feel like? What is making the difference now with all these quality superhero films? Because we got ones that you liked a lot. I know that, right?
Yeah.
Like Logan and Guardians 2, you liked a lot.
Those are probably top 10 material for me, which probably, most times when I make superhero lists or best movies list, I'm only like, okay, I'm probably only going to put one superhero movie on
the
there,
same way.
if that. But Guardians was a movie that hit me really emotionally. I know it didn't hit a lot of people really well, but it hit me emotionally because of the whole father-son relationship that they were portraying in that movie. And of course, Logan is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, just because of the way it addresses Alzheimer's, like mental illness, elderly, but also just the whole conclusion of that storyline.
And it's also a father-son.
Also father-son kind of story too,
Yeah.
like and father-grandfather,
And
or
then father-daughter.
Like that too. Father-daughter too, yeah.
Yeah.
So it touches on a lot of themes that I hit home to as well. And even though I didn't love Thor Ragnarok, but I liked it a lot, and that's a great, that's a good one. Wonder Woman connected with a lot of people.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spider-Man Homecoming was a surprise.
All
to
these
me.
films we named are quality films.
Yeah,
right?
Lego Batman is one that surprised a lot of people.
These are all, like, pretty much, they all delivered in some sort of way as far as critically.
Right.
I can honestly say that really looking back at it, and it's one of those things for me, because I just said it up top. I'm an indie movie guy. I love indie movies. I'm a superhero guy too, but at the end of the day, when I make a top 10 list, I focus on indies because I feel like they're the ones that impacted me the most emotionally and as far as quality wise. However, I'm really looking back at it, and obviously I have some favorites, but really looking back at it, dude, I can't lie. The more I think about it, the more I came out of Thor Ragnarok being like, that was so much fun. I had a blast. I enjoyed myself. I loved it. But thinking about it, I was like, but it's a superhero movie. It's a comedy, so I probably won't. You know what? Screw it. Now, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, screw that. I love Thor so much that it might make my top 10. It might make my top 5. I just love that movie. And it's one of those things where I don't expect that because, last year when I made my top 10 list, I put my comic book movies in there, but I put them like near 9 or 10, right?
Right. Same here.
So thinking of Thor, obviously this is right now, and again, I'm really behind on indie movies, but I put Thor up there, man. I love Thor that much, and I know a lot of people are like, "Well, Thor didn't really have a story. Thor didn't really wasn't that great. It was just all comedy." So what? Some of the best movies that came out this year were comedies, and Thor is one of them. Thor is one of the funniest movies this year, and it's one of my favorite movies of the year.
Right.
I can honestly say that. Going back to indie movies, though, I definitely want to give a shout out to, honestly, two of my favorite movies. We were talking about it a little bit yesterday as well when we were talking about favorites of the year so far. Get Out is still, it's up there. I don't know if there's anything that's going to top that for me as far as favorites of the year. I think
that's an indie that transcended, that had a studio backing and ended up kind of transcending its like small budget routes and being a massive success.
I think it's the most profitable movie ever, right?
Yeah, one of the most. I mean, $1.5 million budget. I don't know how much he spent on marketing. $135 million, I think, domestically.
Probably more now,
or something like that. Yeah, or, big numbers that I put up. And again, that's the genius of entrusting a filmmaker with a small budget, but still having a studio backing behind it. And that's really the only way that studios are working now. It's either really, really small budget or really, really big budget. So being able to give a director like Jordan Peele, who's never made a feature film before, but has had tons of experience on television and had the experience with Keanu but branching out and doing something new with the horror genre, impacted a lot of people heavily. So
another thing I want to say is that some of my favorite indies of the year so far, I'll open that up to you as well.
Right.
I did a few indie movie segments on the Schmoes No Show. Guys should check that out. But some of the ones I did this year were Wind River is a great movie.
I still haven't seen that one.
It's a great freaking movie that a lot of people should see. Shot Caller is a movie that was pretty much straight to VOD as far as how tiny it was, and no one saw this movie. It's about a gangster kind of embracing the life of his gang life and kind of going a little bit too hard when he goes to prison. It stars Nikolai Walder Koster, who plays Jamie Lannister. Shout out to Jamie Lannister. That's a great movie that no one saw. No one freaking saw it. Personal Shopper has one of my favorite actresses working today, her name is Kristen Stewart. In case you guys have heard of her.
But Certain Woman too. She's great in Certain Woman.
Yeah. Obviously, one of my favorite docs this year, Icarus, was beautiful. That no one has seen that. It's on Netflix, and it's freaking on Netflix, and no one has an excuse to not see that movie. But to be honest, probably one of my favorite indies that, again, no one saw, A Ghost Story. A Ghost Story is so freaking good. It's so weird, and it's so odd and so quirky, and yet it hit me, man. It hit me in all the right spots. It's such an incredibly well-done movie. It immediately became one of my favorites of the year when I saw it, and it's one that I mentioned that still a lot of people haven't seen. So I want to toss it over to you as far as favorites of the year. A shout out to A Ghost Story. Please watch that movie. It's so good. It's already on Blu-ray, so go rent it or buy it.
Right. I mean, indies for me, I mean, they're a little more sparse for me. I haven't gotten the chance to see a lot of indies, but I did, Personal Shopper is one. Good Time is another one.
Good Time. Good Time is great. You know what? People love Good Time, and it's a really good movie. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just baffled that people can watch this movie. It's got one of the that I can't lie, Robert Pattinson, man.
Yeah.
It's an incredible progression of like a character who starts out as like, you don't know how to feel about him, and then he progressively makes mistakes after mistakes after mistakes after mistakes after mistakes to the point that you're like, dude, I want you to die. He's such a bad dude in this movie, and it's crazy how like he doesn't start out that way, but he progressively becomes an asshole.
He's kind of driven to a level of insanity that kind of I don't want to spoil.
Definitely not spoil the movie, but it's so crazy how like it turns into that. Keep going, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, Good Time, Personal Shopper, Raw was something I saw early on in the year, which like a French.
Have to see Raw.
Yeah, very very European. It wasn't. I didn't love it, but it has something for it. And beyond that, I didn't really see a lot of. I'm really like I said, Florida Project was something that Sean Baker is one of my favorite filmmakers working right now, from Tangerine to like anything else he's doing. A Ghost Story, I heard a lot about, really want to see. Mudbound just dropped on Netflix a couple weeks ago, or probably like last week, right?
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
I forget when it came out, but it came out a little bit.
I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it yet, but that's something I'm really excited to see. And again, I think that's another way that the indie game has kind of changed now with the platforms of streaming.
Which, to be honest, I have my opinions on that, but you go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think
I just feel like it buries it. I feel like no one gets to watch it because it's on Netflix. Who saw War Machine this year? You saw
I saw War Machine.
No one saw War Machine.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's so many movies that I thought were great movies that no one got the chance to see. Okja is one, right?
Yeah, Okja is one of my favorites of the year.
Sure, it's one of your favorites, but think about it this way. Where is Okja now as far as conversation? Nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix doesn't...
It doesn't promote their movies. They just don't.
Well, they put out so much content. Like, how can you afford to? How can you afford to market every single piece of content that they put out?
Yeah,
right?
it gets buried in the pile of millions of movies or however thousands of movies that they have on their platform.
Yeah, but I think just the fact that they're able to get these films,
it's great. No, what they do, I absolutely agree. They're able to finance and to make and to platform these films in a way that others can't. That's very good.
Probably would not even get made in the first place.
That's
right?
very true.
And I'm happy that there's a lot of options out there. And I think if Netflix wants to get to a point where if all their movies from major studios have to get pulled off, I know Disney's pulling off of Netflix. Eventually, if all the studios are just like, hey, we're dropping all of our shit off of there, Netflix will eventually have enough original content to just have justify their own streaming platform.
Yeah.
And same thing with Amazon and Hulu and all that. To me though, I don't like the Amazon approach to it because Amazon is very traditional in terms of you have to. It still has to be in theaters, and they're still gonna wait for 90 days after its theatrical run to come on VOD. To me, it's like, what's the point if you're just gonna go
the point
the traditional?
Is Oscars.
Yeah,
the point is awards. I like it because it gives up. Again, I'm talking to you right now, in this year, in this moment. Where are the Netflix movies now? You see what I'm saying? Like, the Netflix movies, they make movies that deserve award attention, but they don't get the award attention because of the platform they're on. Whereas Amazon, they make movies that deserve award attention, but they're able to give it that release date that allows people to pay money to watch it in theaters, where I personally feel like movies should be watched. I'm so traditionalist in that sense, but I feel like, say what you will of Amazon, Manchester by the Sea wouldn't have succeeded as much as it did if it wasn't for Amazon, and that thing won Oscars.
Yeah,
Many
I mean,
Oscars.
That's true. And yeah, there's truth. I mean, same thing with Hulu winning Best Drama Series when Netflix has been nominated every year, but hasn't managed to win, whereas Hulu did win because they followed a more traditional release, the week-to-week release that, you normally... And yeah, I just feel, to me, the whole Academy and the Television Academy are just so out of date, where Netflix is really breaking new ground with a lot of this stuff. And, of course, Netflix, they have big PR teams and big marketing firms to specifically target Oscar voters and Emmy voters. And that's how they've managed to have so many documentaries nominated for Best Documentary, at least Netflix has. But in terms of national conversation, you're right. And, the Amazon films are a little more prone to having that kind of conversation because of their release platforms. I just think that, and it's partially because we're so inundated with as much content as we're inundated with now. It's hard to keep conversations of Okja happening to November and December of 2017 because that's just the way.
But I do feel like we are having conversations about Get Out, and that came out pretty early.
Yeah, February.
I just feel like Netflix makes such great stuff, great content, and I love it. And I love that they give platform to filmmakers and that they allow them to do what they want to do, the vision that they want to complete. I just hate how they don't really allow anything else besides that. They don't allow any kind of expansion or any kind of promotion or any kind of anything. Like, they just drop it online and says, hey, guys, by the way, this is coming out on Netflix on Friday. Check it out if you want. Right. And that's kind of it.
Well, I do think, though, that what is nice about that is that random film goers who just only really have Netflix and don't have other television will just randomly discover, a weird indie movie on Netflix and just, say they watch it.
That's a good point. It
allows, it gets more eyes on a film that would normally not have any eyes on it
if it was in theaters and no one paid tickets or money to see it.
Right. And I've seen that even through myself, where people who are not film fans or not cinephiles just randomly stumbling upon something like a Okja or a Netflix series I don't know, was one of the recent ones, Ozarks. the Ozarks. Yeah,
Ozark's great. Yeah.
Okja and Ozarks, right? Like just O's, but they both are shows that like didn't have a lot of shows and movies that didn't have a lot of marketing behind them, didn't have a lot of buzz, but random people are just discovering them and enjoying them. So I enjoy it from that respect.
There's always something for that too. I kind of want to go back a little bit to blockbuster quality films. To me, it's great because I'm able to enjoy the indie movies that I've seen this year and appreciate them and give them the attention they deserve. But I'm also able to enjoy some fun blockbusters. I want to hear you, besides superhero movies, what were some of your favorites? Some of the ones I really enjoyed were It, obviously.
It was good.
But you know what's crazy about It is that you were talking about the mid-range budget. That had a mid-range budget.
That did, yeah. It did.
And I think it had like a 46 mil, 45 mil budget.
Yeah.
Which is right about that mid-range budget movie.
And they, and that's something that like the original director and writers, Kerry Fukunaga, they wanted a little more money behind. But the medium budget had to serve as like a compromise. It's like,
sure.
Whereas, and that's a Warner Brothers movie. We talked about Justice League last week where they had to dump a lot of money into it to hope for the best and hope that it sticks. But, It is a prime example of something that was a Warner Brothers release that was released on a largest opening like
for
screens
for
a horror movie, yeah, and it was put on like 4,000 screens and all that because they have faith in the actual film itself. So
it was. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought what Skarsgård did an amazing job as Pennywise. I thought the kids were great. I thought the story was great. I thought the third act was great. I just really enjoyed this movie. I'm surprised it got the kind of like semi backlash that it got because it got a little bit of backlash.
Right.
And
it's everything that's successful.
I guess, but I just feel like it's such a solid movie, and it's just a well-rounded movie. And the box office tells you that it was a really good movie too, because a lot of people were able to see it and not just be like, well, where was all the crazy gore or all the crazy blood that makes a horror movie? It doesn't need to have that. It was still had scary moments.
Yeah, and then you know what? Again, I don't want to go on this whole rant again, but I didn't love Blade Runner 2049.
That was the one I was about to mention.
That's definitely something that connected with a lot of people, and it's essentially a $200 million art film right in theaters, which is I'm proud of that. I'm happy about it.
Come on, man. This movie, I get your problems with it, but for me, this movie was so freaking good. It
well
was
made.
so well. No, it was good too. It was well done. It was well made. Denny put in a lot of heart in this movie. The cast was great. Like, this was such a freaking dope movie that no one saw, and it just bums me out. And I know, you've told me, we've talked about this so many times, and I still kind of don't get it. You just don't like it because it was like her. I mean, to me, that's what I was like. Well, that's kind of cool that it has some thoughts on her.
I think there's a lot of things. To me, without going into spoiler territory.
It's been
a while. It's been a while. Listen. To me, what the original Blade Runner was about was the idea of can a robot have a heart? Can a robot have a soul? And naturally, I guess the only way for a sequel to go is continue to further that question. But we've already had a straight out answer to that in the first one. Now they kind of have to reestablish and backtrack and step on the original film's toes to establish this new thing of like, oh, if your memories are created or who's creating them and all that. And
that's badass to me. That's expanding the universe to me.
It's diminishing the universe and the whole
or expanding
the whole thing of, oh, we have to stop the sequel, so let's start a revolution. It's the worst. Like I said,
sometimes you need to start a revolution, man.
The whole hearse. Like I said, and again, the original Blade Runner, of course, influenced movies like her and influenced movies like Terminator, influenced all these now classic movies. But having your sequel kind of revisit that, it's the same thing as like the John Carter effect, right? Like John Carter, the original John Carter, influenced 90% of the science fiction we watch today, right?
Sure.
The original book, at least. So it influenced stuff like Star Wars, Avatar, all that stuff. When the actual movie ends up coming out, and we've seen it done to death a million times, it's like, what's really the point? So I have my problems with it, but of course I'm not gonna disagree. It's a good, solid, well-made motion picture. I just don't think it's.
I thought it was
as a Blade Runner movie. It wasn't what I was looking for.
I thought it was a fantastic movie that deserved a lot more attention than it got, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. If you want to hear my full, like, me and Beardo did a whole like episode about on Don't Be a Beardo about Blade Runner 2049. So
Yeah,
check that out.
I kind of want to talk about too movies left in 2017 that we want to see, or movies that we haven't seen. I guess.
Right. I mean, definitely Disaster Artist.
Disaster Artist is definitely one that you mentioned that you want to see.
Call Me by Your Name.
Call Me by Your Name is one I want to see. Mainly, they're all indie movies. Shape of Water is probably my most anticipated movie that I'm going to see. I'm probably seeing it real soon. I am so hyped from that movie. I'm so glad that Guillermo del Toro is getting Oscar attention after years of not getting any Oscar attention. Obviously, because he made Hellboy movies and Blade movies. But my thing is, like, that guy's such talent, and he's such a genuine auteur and a genuine filmmaker and a very authentic filmmaker. That's such a good word to use to describe Guillermo del Toro. And I'm so happy that we have Latino filmmakers who are kicking butt this year with the It filmmaker, and now with Shape of Water, and we've had Inarritu with The Revenant. I'm so happy that we have a filmmaker who's getting Oscar attention, who deserves the Oscar attention, and I'm pumped for that movie. Obviously, Lady Bird I still haven't seen. Three Billboards I still haven't seen. Gary Oldman is one of my favorite working actors today, one of my favorite all-time actors. So I'm very hyped for The Darkest Hour, and it's definitely a performance movie, a movie that I want to see because of his performance. But that's definitely a movie that I'm so excited to see, and I definitely want to hear what you guys think. Do you have any other ones that you want to check out this year?
No, I mean, you basically hit all of them. The Disaster Artist we talked about earlier. The Last Jedi. Again, I really do think
Last Jedi.
That's.
I can't wait for The Last Jedi, man.
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot that one.
And again, I think that's something that is really has the potential to be something special. And I think the fact that the Lucasfilm gave him a trilogy of movies after watching The Last Jedi speaks highly on that. So I am super excited for that. Other movies, I can't really think. I'm probably a few, like, as always, when Oscar season comes around, we get exposed to a number of indie movies that we have to see. But, I'm not sure about, any more blockbusters outside of Star Wars that are like really highly anticipated.
Star Wars, man, I can't freaking wait for that movie. Anyways, guys, let's jump into some of your questions that you guys left us. Jordan James Thiessen says, "Hey Ace, what are some of your films that you guys are ashamed to love?" Do you have any films that you're like ashamed to love it?
I'm not ashamed to love it, but
but that's the thing, because guilty pleasure is like, I guess that's kind of the same thing as guilty pleasure.
Yeah, well, right? I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to tell people I like Twilight. I say that all the time. I know Ace hates me for it, but
you should be RB3. You should be. You should be ashamed.
I watched that whole saga of films, man. Read every single book. Beyond that, I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, if I like it, I'm not gonna be mad at. Like, I will say things that I love that other people don't like Speed Racer, but I'll argue Speed Racer is a fucking incredible movie. Like, I think that's
another wrong opinion from RB3.
Oh no,
I'm just kidding, dude. Caleb Griffer says, "Hey Ace, which season of Legend of Korra was your favorite? I love how every season focused on a new villain, and I have to say seasons 3 and 4, Powerful Benders, was my personal favorite. Legend of Korra is amazing. You should watch that.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite animated shows that a lot of people should really give a shot. Season 3 and 4 are, I'm telling you, RB3, they're beautiful. They're so well done. Season 3, if I had to pick, is probably my favorite, but season 4 is another absolutely incredible, well done season of television. And it's crazy because they evolve so well with the storytelling, and they're able to evolve through the Avatar: The Last Airbender story, going through book 1, book 2, book 3, and then going from Legend of Korra, book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, and they evolve in such a incredible way. And the types of themes they're able to hit in the Legend of Korra is, dude, they hit on themes that are like, this isn't like obviously you hear about kid show and not kid show,
right,
but they hit on themes of like personal identification and personal society, and then they hit on themes as far as like what is the purpose of a god in a society, or the purpose of power, the purpose of the anarchy, government structure, nationalism. Like nationalism. I mean, that's something that we're dealing with now. Like extreme nationalism, as far as like, get them out of my country, get them out of this, or the idea of having an advantage over someone, or one race having an advantage over another race.
Right.
They deal with that in Avatar, in Legend of Korra. Like it's an incredible series that I really want more people to watch because it's so well done and it ends perfectly. So I definitely recommend watching it. Top 5 DC animated movies. I've talked a lot about DC animated movies because I think they're incredible. I'm sure you've seen them too, right?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them, yeah.
Dude, DC animated movies, it's hard to pick my favorites, but Under the Red Hood is absolutely incredible. It's probably still my favorite. All-Star Superman, I think, is one that it's super well done. Assault on Arkham is a really fun one that I enjoy quite a bit. I talked 2 weeks ago on the Zack Snyder episode about the Superman and Batman team-up ones.
Right.
Those are so good. Superman and Batman Public Enemies and Superman Batman Apocalypse is really freaking good. Do you have any ones that you can think of?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some I can't think of a lot off the top of my head.
Off the top of your head, yeah, right.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of some.
There's a great one there's a great Justice League one that nobody saw that came out in 2000.
Is it the old school one?
I don't know.
Or is it Justice League?
It's Justice
Crisis
League.
on Infinite Earth?
No, it's a very small one. I think it went straight to like HBO or something like that. Flashpoint Paradox is
Flashpoint's great.
But that's not the one I'm talking about.
Is it the New Frontier?
No, it came out. I can't remember the name of it. But that one was like it was almost like an adaptation of Tower of Babel, where like all the villains kind of assemble. All the villains kind of assemble using the.
Oh yeah, it's what is it called? It's based on the Tower of Babel comic.
Yeah.
It's called Doom.
There we go, Justice League Doom.
Yeah, it's
I don't know why that one.
It's crazy because that's not even regarded as one of. It's good, but it's not as good. As
I don't know why. To me, that one was like really solid.
Is it with Savage?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. They got
Cyborg's in it.
Yeah, Cyborg's in it. The Green Lantern.
Yeah. Mirror Man. Shout out to Mirror Man.
Right. And again, it's pinning all of their main bad guys against. And to me, that's almost the truest adaptation of the Tower of Babel storyline.
Sure.
We've seen, but I really love that one. The most recently, the Dark Knight Returns animated.
Oh yeah.
Of course,
those
that was really highly regarded.
Those are always highly regarded.
But I'm not. It's funny. My aunt is like not really. A nerd, but she grabs like all of the animated DC films when they come out on DVD just because she's super into like the superhero stuff.
Sure.
So she's always putting me on to like the Teen Titans versus Justice League. That one was one I watched pretty recently. So.
Did you like that one? Because a lot of people didn't like it.
I mean, it was okay.
I thought it was.
I mean,
I kind of didn't like it.
Better than the Justice League movie we have out.
That's very true.
The live action one.
Out in theaters for one more week. I'm just kidding. It's definitely not.
Kick it out of theaters after 3 weeks.
Jonathan Caro says, "What director's work are you really anticipated to talk about down the line?" I'm assuming he means in the meaning of
right.
Spielberg.
Yeah, we'd probably have to do like a 2-parter for that one.
We have to do this.
Because it's just so much to go through.
Nolan is another one that I'm definitely looking forward to because Nolan is one of the most amazing filmmakers working today.
We're kind of trying to wait for like Dunkirk to like hit the home video. Kind of.
We'll find a moment for Nolan, but Nolan's another one that's amazing that I want. Oh, Ridley Scott is one of my favorite directors.
Ridley Scott. Paul Thomas Anderson is one.
Oh yeah,
I'm excited
PTA.
to talk about.
That's a good one.
Spike Lee is another one. We have a few.
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki, yes.
We're definitely going to talk about him.
And we get young James Franco comments every episode.
Hey, shout out to young James Franco.
We're getting to Miyazaki.
We definitely will for sure. He's obviously one of the most influential filmmakers ever of all time.
Right.
American audience. Oh, I'm sorry. Hector Hernandez says American audiences in general don't seem to follow and consume not English-speaking cinema. What do you think can be done to become a more cosmopolitan audience, what do you think can be done to become a more cosmopolitan audience? I guess to appreciate more foreign language films. Beats me.
Yeah, well, it's
tough.
It's not.
I appreciate. I love a lot of Asian films. A lot of Korean films. come out with some really good stuff. And obviously, I'm an Oscar fan, so I see a lot of foreign language films as far as what comes out and what gets attention as far as indie films as well.
Right.
So it's hard for me to speak on it just because I do enjoy foreign language films quite a bit.
Well, it's there's a lot of factors that go into it. One of the big factors is just how big Hollywood is within itself.
Sure.
We have more than enough American movies to satisfy our consumption. So as having to hunt down foreign films is just not on the top of our. That's the same thing with even though Bollywood is one of the biggest markets in the world. You don't see a lot of American movies making money in Bollywood because they have their own movies. They have their own blockbusters. Same thing with and nobody talks about this, but Nigeria is
Nollywood.
Nollywood. Yeah, one of the biggest markets. Huge. Yeah, and nobody's willing to talk about that. But again, they have you don't see a lot of American productions going big there. Same thing with here. And it's another fundamental problem on an education level. Like we don't teach foreign language early on in our schools, in American schools. So with asking us to see a movie not in our language and to read a movie.
And it's also, I mean, obviously this becomes a whole like global scale issue, but it's also the concept of the English language in general, as far as like people all over the world are told to learn English from a very young age. Exactly. I know personally in Colombia, like everyone's taught to speak English, or in other countries, everyone's taught to speak English because it's such a commodity to learn or to know that language. And so we are very like pampered and catered to because everyone else speaks English. So we kind of are just used to just knowing how to speak English, right?
Right.
That's one issue. Another issue is release, right? Finding these movies aren't easy.
It's tough.
Like a lot of people are like, you should watch this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, try finding that. It's really hard, even like on the internet, which the internet has everything. And it's actually hard to like rent a movie off the internet when it's like completely like unknown. Like a lot of people are talking about Your Name, obviously, which is the biggest anime film that came out this year, or one of the biggest anime films that came out this year that everyone loved and that everyone appreciated. Try finding Your Name. It's actually kind of hard to find to watch. Earlier this year, like I know it released on Blu-ray November 11th, but even that, dude, like it's hard to find these kind of movies where a lot of people are like, you should watch this movie. You're an idiot if you don't watch it. Well, try finding it because it's really hard, dude.
Yeah. International distribution is
key.
Tough, yeah. So, I mean, I'm always like that's been a main goal of mine since I actually started college is to go out of my way as much as possible and find some foreign films that can work that I could find in theaters, but it's tough.
Kristen Smith says, shout out to Kristen, by the way. What was the first movie that you watched in theaters? That's one question. And what was the first movie that you watched that you viewed it as more than just, you viewed it more as art than just entertainment? Sorry for butchering that question.
Right. No.
What was the first movie you saw in theaters?
It's tough. Okay. I technically the first movie I saw in theaters was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. But I don't really like to tell people that, but I'm telling all of you listeners that because you guys are my friends. And it's because I don't like saying that because like I actually, being as little as I was like 4 or something, seeing like the Green Goblin on screen, like burning and like laughing and like killing people was just like so horrifying. Like I couldn't watch it. Like we were crying, like I was crying too much and my mom took me out of the theaters. First one I saw all the way through though, Peter Pan, Return to Neverland, baby. That's what it was. Yeah, Peter Pan Return to Neverland.
I'm just still trying to recover from your first story that you were crying in Spider-Man. Yeah, I was having a blast in that movie. Yeah. But that's because I was like way older than you too.
Yeah, I was like too young for that. For a kid my age to see that in theaters was a little too much. But
Sebastian Sierra says.
Wait. For the second half of that question though, was the first movie you saw as like art and not entertainment? What do you think for you that was?
Wow, that's a great question.
Because I have an answer, but
that's probably more recent for me, just because a lot of the movies that I really enjoyed when I was like in my teen years were like action movies. Like Casino Royale was one of my favorite movies, and it's still one of my favorite movies. Batman Begins is one of my favorite movies, and that was like in 2005 when I was starting to get more into like filmmaking and stuff. But again, that was the kind of movies that I was like, I really enjoy this as like a movie that I would love to do, like something like that, like a Batman Begins. but like an art type house movie, I don't know, man. I guess. I mean, I would have to think of it a little more. But as far as like movies that made me want to do other movies, I can't lie, dude. Nolan is one of my inspirations.
Yeah.
As far as like Batman Begins and those type of like crazy well done action movies, because that's
Yeah.
an incredibly well done action movie. As
Yeah.
far as Batman Begins goes.
For me, like it was very clear because it was kind of my transition from just kind of watching movies to the movie that inspired. I tell this whole story of me wanting to be an actor when I was a little kid, and then but weren't able to afford that when I was a kid. So, but I remember the first movie that I thought was like I want to do this for a living was actually the Shia LaBeouf classic Holes. When I was real little,
Really?
yeah, watching
Wow.
that was like the first time I was like, oh, this is an actual story being told. And I don't know why, but that movie, I can even watch that movie today and still be somewhat moved by it because there's that whole story of, it's the whole subplot of him having to go to prison and like all this stuff and the corrupt like past and how like the Warren has her own deal she's dealing with, and the snakes. I don't know why that movie is like really adultish for a kid movie.
Sure.
So to me that was like a clear line from like just watching like Peter Pan and Spider-Man to seeing film in a different way.
That's great, man. Sebastian Sierra says, I love your show, and I've only seen one episode, the Zack Snyder one. I'm starting to get into anime for the first time in my life. Any recommendations on what I should watch? I'm watching Death Note right now. I love it, and I will watch Attack on Titan. The recommendations I've gotten so far are Trigun, Hogotoku no Ken, First of the North Star, Blame, Dead Man Wonderland, One Punch Man, Desert Punk, Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell is one of the greatest animated.
Yeah.
I mean, movies. Obviously, it's one of the greatest animated movies ever. It's one of the greatest animated shows ever. Anime is that Ghost in the Shell standalone complex is incredible. Watch Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. Watch Attack on Titan. Watch Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop. I'm familiar with that.
Watch. I like Psycho-Pass. I think it's a fun one. Psycho-Pass is a lot of fun. But yeah, watch those animes for sure. There's a ton of animes that are out there that you guys can enjoy. Moving on. Which films of 2017 deserve either Oscar or Golden Globe nominations? There's a lot, Brian. Brian Nosebaum asked us that question.
Yeah,
I think Get Out deserves a nomination. I guess maybe we can talk about ones that might not get nominations.
Yeah, I mean,
I think deserve nominations. I would say Get Out is one
yeah,
that deserves nominations.
I mean, I don't think Logan is getting nominations, but
Logan
I'd
is
love
going to
to
be
see it.
such an interesting one because I feel like Logan. I agree with you. Logan probably won't get any nominations, but you can make an argument that it probably should get
I
nominations.
think it should, and I think that Fox has even said they're focusing their Oscar campaign this year on War for the Planet of the Apes. So if they're, I don't know how much money they're allocating towards that as opposed to Logan. But,
I think that's such a mistake. It's a good movie, don't get me wrong, but I think Logan is a better film.
Well, I haven't seen Planet of the Apes, which
Yeah.
is weird because the second one is actually one of my favorite like sci-fi movies ever.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was just wonderful as a film. The third one obviously didn't perform in the same way box office wise or critically as successful as the second one. So a lot of people see it as like the franchise kind of padding out. But again, from what I hear, it's a much more personal story than the rest of the films in the franchise. Right?
Yeah, I mean it's good. I didn't feel like it was as good as the previous two, and I feel like Logan is a better film and should get more attention than it's getting right now. Other films that I think deserve Oscars and will get Oscar nominations for me. Blade Runner 2049 will get a ton of technical Oscar nominations. Unfortunately, it probably won't get much more than technical Oscar nominations.
The box office doesn't help.
Shape of Water is going to get a ton of nominations as far as acting, as far as Best Director, as far as Best Picture.
Yeah.
Nolan's going to get it for Dunkirk. Dunkirk's going to get it for Best Picture.
Yeah.
Nominations. Call Me by Your Name
definitely
is getting a lot of
like
traction.
Actor nominations.
Three Billboards Outside of Billings, Missouri is going to get a lot of nominations. Lady Bird will get some nominations.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Greta Gerwig.
Greta Gerwig might get a Best
Director.
That would be great for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. First film, first director. Original screenplay with Get Out.
Well, see, the adapted screenplay legacy this year is pretty stacked because a lot of people are predicting, of course, Blade Runner might get a nom, but even something like Logan or Wonder Woman might sneak in, like a superhero movie, adapt the screenplay.
That'd be crazy. I
You
know
know,
Wonder Woman is pushing so hard for the Oscar campaign, which when I
yeah.
first heard that, I thought it was a joke, but apparently it's real, and apparently they're pushing really hard for Oscar attention
Right.
for Wonder
Well,
Woman.
there's not a lot in the adapted screenplay category this year in 2017, so there's a good competition we could see. There's a good chance that we could see a superhero movie make the race. So
Yeah, it's gonna be a crazy Oscar year, and I'm kind of excited to see what happens
right,
because I feel like this year we're gonna get more genre films, which is awesome.
the Beguiled too. I forgot to mention it
You think
earlier.
The Beguiled's gonna get? No, did you see that movie?
Yeah, I just saw it. Yeah,
You think it's gonna get Oscar attention though?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see it or?
I
or no?
didn't see it.
Well, see, it's the thing of I think if they push if 20th century, I think it's Fox Searchlight or maybe Focus Features. I'm not sure, but if that's pushed, because it is essentially what an Oscar movie is. It's period piece. It's this. It's that. It's the. It has like a whole theme of feminism, or it's a complex movie that I think fits into the Oscar fold very well. And I think it's a movie. Frankly, Sofia Coppola won the Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival, and riding on that wave and the lack of representation in Hollywood right now, I think they're gonna look out for more female-driven or female-led movies or
I
female-directed.
agree with you, but I think they're gonna fill that quota with Lady Bird.
It could be Lady Bird. It could be Wonder Woman. It could be The Beguiled.
Could
I'm
be Wonder
not
Woman.
exactly sure,
That's a good point.
yeah.
Luis Bonilla says, Ace RB3, how are you guys?
Hey.
How are your families? Any plans for the holidays?
Holidays, yeah. I mean, we just had Thanksgiving, so.
What are you gonna do for
good.
Christmas?
Christmas is it's a little tougher. I'm probably just gonna be at home. I live in my hometown, Compton, California, baby. So
There you
be
go, Luis.
there.
Thank you for asking, Luis. We
Yeah.
appreciate questions like that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. Holidays are. Are you going back to?
Yeah, I'm going back to Phoenix. I'm gonna
Hey.
enjoy it, and
Okay.
it's gonna have a lot of fun. Yeah, man, Christmas is pretty much the same as Thanksgiving, which is just get as fat as you can.
Right.
And that's what I just did right now, which I'm freaking exploding out of my pants right now because I'm so fat. That's
You're good, Ace.
good deal.
Yeah.
Anyways, Alexandra Ciampa says, what filmmaker working today do you think does the best portrayal of violence on screen on a realistic / believable way? Would you agree that the cinematography's purpose to a film often gets overlooked with the amount of people who just talks and how beautiful it looks without giving it much thought? Can I hope for a future episode on Yorgos Lanthimos? He's one of my favorite directors working today. So that was like 3 questions in there. Let's go to the first one first. What filmmaker working today do you think does the best portrayal of violence? That's a very broad term, best. But I guess he says realistic and believable.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of filmmakers that do a lot of violence. There's a lot of filmmakers that do very little violence but do it like well. Obviously,
Right.
Tarantino does violence on an incredibly
Over the top.
level.
Yeah.
We talked about Zack Snyder 2 weeks ago, and he does a lot of violence in a very also over the top way. I don't know. As far as I think realistic is a very interesting term because realistic doesn't necessarily mean bloody. I think Denny does.
I was just gonna say, Blade
Denis
Runner
Villeneuve.
has some interesting moments, like with the whole ending sequence. I didn't like it, but I like the whole ending sequence where like he was choking old girl out like in the water, and like the water was. I thought that was like the way it's kind of slow moving and kind of taking a lot of time to get to that. Like is something that is not realistic in a lot of movies, right? Like,
Yeah.
So
That was a very realistic portrayal, and he did it in Sicario.
yeah,
He
same.
did it in-
Sicario is a very realistic
Like violence.
violence. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't even think. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll probably say Villeneuve.
Denny is the first guy I thought of too.
Yeah. So I don't really. I mean, I don't know a lot of other directors who are using violence to an extent. Like
To make it that crazy,
Yeah, make
yeah.
it crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I'd probably say 'cause,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of genre films happening with indie directors at the moment. So
Yeah, definitely as far as violence. And then he also asks, would you agree that cinematography's purpose is more than just look how beautiful it looks, and it can also be just people talking in a room?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's where the skills of a cinematographer shine the most. If just the simple conversation scenes, man. And
Because it's something that's been done in every movie ever. So finding a cinematographer who can shoot it in a different way or can shoot it in a creative way is always fun, right? Or shoot it in a way that you can take what's on the script and put it on the screen in the most effective way.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, and I think that's something that we see a lot of talented directors and directors of photography are able to master, or just the quiet moments, the moments in between,
Or the tense moments.
Yeah, and of
Tense
course,
moments of a conversation, right? Because a conversation can be tense.
Right, and that's all depending on the lighting, the editing, the colors, the tone, the atmosphere, the production design, and that's also a quality that goes unnoticed in a lot of films. It's just how the production design is incorporated into the cinematography and the look of the film. And I guess we're gonna keep talking about Blade Runner, but I think Blade Runner did the scenes, the conversations really well. It's particularly in that one scene where they're going through the library of. It must have been like where Agent K was like going through like the library of all the different files.
Yeah.
And the way that was like lit and composed was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. He also asked, are we going to do an episode on Yorgos?
Yorgos. Oh, so he's the guy who did The Lobster, and he did Killing of the Secret Deer. I mean, I haven't seen Killing of the Secret Deer.
I still haven't seen Killing of the Secret Deer.
That's another one
That's another one that I haven't seen that I'm going to see. I
Yeah.
swear I'm going to see it.
Lobster's interesting, though. It's an interesting movie.
Alex Behune says, what would you rank your Tarantino films?
Tarantino.
He says 1 through 9, but I'm not going to go 1 through 9 just because that would take so much time and effort and thought.
Well, should we save that for our eventual Tarantino episode?
Oh, we could, yeah. I mean, you could just say your favorite.
Oh,
or one of your favorites.
Oh, I mean, it's gonna be Pulp Fiction. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. That's definitely anything that's not Pulp Fiction. I'll definitely say Django though. That's my number 2.
Yeah, we were talking about Tarantino yesterday too. Huh?
Yeah.
I really like Inglourious Bastards. I think that's a good movie. I like Django for what it is too. I think Django is a really good movie as well. Robert Miller says, what is one film you guys love but no one else has seen or loves to hate? And if you were a host of a movie of an all-nighter, which films would you pick? He also says, which award bait films are you guys looking forward to the most? I said Shape of Water. You say Disaster Artist for that question. As far as if I would pick an all-nighter, which films would I pick? I would pick I don't know. I think I would pick a lot of blockbuster movies. I would pick a lot of classics like Jurassic Park, Star Wars. I'd put a Bond film in there, maybe Casino Royale. I'd put like a Nolan Batman in there, maybe. As far as an all-nighter goes, I would love to do like an all-nighter like Star Wars. Watch every Star Wars movie. Like
I was gonna say, for me, it'd probably be like a Harry Potter.
Or like a Indiana Jones.
Oh, Indiana.
That's a great like binge movie. Like
Yeah.
watch all the. I used to do that. Watch all the Indiana Jones movies. I used to watch like all the Bond movies like at the same time.
Yeah.
Just watch one after the
Oh,
other.
Bond. Yeah, that's like a over weeker. you're gonna be there all week.
Bond is fun to watch like a lot at a time for sure.
Yeah.
What's a film that no one you guys love but someone else hates or everyone hates? That's a.
I've said Speed Racer. Yeah. Speed
Racer
you
said Speed Racer and Twilight.
Twilight.
I say Underworld. Badass movie.
Oh, really?
Badass. Love that movie.
Right.
What's your favorite non-American English live-action movie?
That's
I need
tough.
to specify this because it's very easy for you, Ace, to pick an anime movie and just roll with it. For me, that honor goes to Pan's Labyrinth. What would you say is your favorite foreign film that's live action and not anime?
Pan's Labyrinth was the one that introduced me to international cinema. That's tough. That's like asking like favorite movie of all time, right? Almost. At least in my mind.
It's tough because I'm sure that I've seen so many, but I can't think of ones off the top of my head right away.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, well, right now I'm in film school, so I'm thinking a lot about like the French stuff and like all the classic stuff like that. Jean-Luc Godard is one of the filmmakers that we study a lot in film school because there's a lot to study in his movie. So I might be thinking of something of his, or I'm thinking of some other great like Asian.
That's what I was gonna say. What I go to is I've talked about it a lot on the podcast and on different Q&As and on Schmoles now. I'm a huge martial arts fan. Like martial arts cinema,
right.
Bruce Lee martial arts cinema is something that my oldest brother and I bonded on quite a bit. So we would religiously watch martial arts films, and I was obsessed with martial arts. I wanted to be like Bruce Lee, and I wanted to be the next martial artist. So martial arts cinema is something that I grew up with. So for me, the Raid films are incredible.
Oh, right.
Some old school Bruce Lee films are awesome. There's a Korean film called The Man from Nowhere that's really good. Another one though, besides those, I would probably say one that we recently saw for an episode. I thought Incendies is a great film.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, great
It's a
film.
French
And
Canadian film.
You know, I was thinking, movies like Kung Fu Hustle is one that I connect to a lot. Like that was one of my favorites. I think the full title, I can't remember the full title of this movie, but Shiitake, Django, da 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 da. It's not, well, they actually do speak English in that movie, but it's a foreign film that's like a parody of like westerns, like American westerns, but it's like all like Japanese samurai stuff. In terms of like dramas, there's a great, Asian, I can't remember if it's like specifically Japanese, probably not Japanese, so I apologize if I'm offending anybody, but that film In the Mood for Love is a great one.
Okay.
So I'm like a lot of the RC stuff I could think of too, but I don't know, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good ones though.
Tyler McLaughlin says, "What is your most underrated film of 2017?"
Underrated?
Underrated.
Underrated. Underrated. I gotta think of a film that I guess most people didn't like.
Or most people didn't see, maybe?
Most people didn't see, yeah. I mean, I'm guessing your answer might be King Arthur?
No, I'm going to say Ghost Story, but that's because
Ghost
a lot of
Story.
people didn't see it.
Right.
No one saw it.
Right.
As far as like most fun movie that no one saw, yeah, King Arthur is totally King Arthur, dude. I'm telling you, it's not like I'm saying it's like, oh, it's a great movie. I'm not saying it's a great movie. I'm saying it's an anime King Arthur movie. It's over the top. It's crazy. It's ridiculous, and it's a blast. I thought it was fun.
I got Atomic Blonde.
Atomic Blonde. Yeah.
People watch Atomic Blonde. It's a great film.
Yeah. I still haven't seen it.
Oh, it's good, man.
Will J. Rev Brandt says, "How would you go for in charge of DC or Marvel?" Marvel, I would pretty much stay the same.
Yeah.
I would keep doing what I'm doing. I would try not to change too much, and I would try not to incorporate different properties. I don't want to see Disney buy Fox. I don't want to see Disney buy, the X-Men franchise, the Deadpool franchise, and start making those movies. That's my personal take. So even if they did do it, I wouldn't. If I were Marvel, I wouldn't touch it, even though they probably would touch it. But as far as
I see them do Fantastic Four, leave X-Men alone.
I agree. I do Fantastic Four, leave X-Men alone. That's a good point. As far as like if I were in charge of DC, what I would do, I mentioned this last week with our Justice League review, but honestly, reboot. Yeah. I'm restarting the whole thing. And I know a lot of people might be like, well, they already did Aquaman. We'll release Aquaman, keep Wonder Woman in the universe, try to incorporate Superman in the universe, and forget everything else. I'm serious, man. Like, that thing made $96 million opening weekend for Justice League. That's a reboot, man. You got to reboot that thing. That's what I would do if I were DC. I would let the filmmakers make their own stories and stop focusing on a team-up movie or stop focusing on making Marvel.
Right.
That's what I would do. I don't know if you would. What would you do for DC differently?
I mean, I don't know. They gotta figure out a way to market their movies, I think, a little better, man. I mean, Suicide Squad had a great marketing, and even though it wasn't great, made a lot of money. Whereas Justice League to me had horrible marketing. Again, that's probably the hand they're dealt due to all of their all of the stuff surrounding the production and post production. But I don't know. Yeah, so you want to start taking something from
Absolutely,
Twitter,
I was just about to say that. Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm pulling them up right now, and we have questions here from Jonathan Peck, who writes, "It's a cliche question, but what are your top 5 best directors working right now?"
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say one of my favorite directors working right now. I would definitely put Denny up there. Mm-hmm. I would definitely put Ridley Scott up there. Man, I think Inarritu is a great filmmaker. I think Alfonso Cuarón is another great filmmaker. Who else? Nolan. I think Nolan's a genius. Aronofsky's great.
Right. It's tough because the definition of working is tough when you see, like, the most recent films.
As far as like they're still alive, right?
Yeah. Because you kind of think Spielberg,
but they're making movies consistently.
Yeah.
Who making movies consistently is your favorite director?
Well, making movies like now, as in like in the, I say probably in the 2000s, 2010s era, you can't go without saying Nolan. To me, I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson's recent films have divided a lot of people. I think they're great, whether you're talking about Punch Drunk Love or The Master or the one he did, There Will Be Blood. And, Inherent Vice was a little divisive, but I enjoyed it.
Do you like Spike Jonze?
Spike Jonze, I love Spike Jonze. Yeah, absolutely. Spike Jonze has been on a tear ever since. He's really only had about 4 movies, right? 4 or 5 movies, but every single one of them are excellent and
came from music videos too.
Music videos and
very artsy music videos.
Yeah, he was definitely more. I know we talked about like the Michael Bay and Zack Snyder and the
Fincher's another one. Yeah, Fincher's another one that I would put up there for me.
Fincher, absolutely, yeah.
Fincher's great.
And to me, Spike Lee's still making good movies, even though a lot of people think he's fallen off. I think if you actually watch his movies, they're good, but nobody's watching them now. So yeah, I think probably those 5. I think that and Denny Villeneuve is somebody now. Another question coming from Jordan Alfred, who writes, "What are some gaps in your movie knowledge you would love to fill?"
Explain that. What do
like
you mean gaps
I'm guessing in terms of like decades or genres or.
Oh, okay. I thought it meant movie knowledge as far as technical wise, maybe. As far as decades and genres, yeah, I'm not great at classic films. I can openly admit that.
Right.
I'm not great at I'm better at modern films as far as knowledge goes. Classic films, black and white films. I don't go to film school, so I don't study those.
Right.
What about you, man?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of those, like a lot, because I'm in there right now. But to me, the biggest gap is definitely like the 80s, like 80s,
really?
80s, probably 90s too, because it's like that's something where it's like no film school professor is gonna point you to a Stallone movie or an Arnie movie or like Broken Arrow or something. Nobody's gonna point you to that in film school.
And I feel like they're so, I don't know. Sometimes I have my own personal feelings, but I feel like sometimes people are so obsessed with those 80s movies that they don't realize they're not good movies.
Yeah,
they're really not. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's nostalgia, bro. Like we're so, but that's the generation of people who are like writing these stories and writing these things and on the YouTube videos and on this, that I feel like eventually when we get to my generation and your generation, we're not going to be talking about those movies because looking back at it, they're not great movies. So many people hate the prequels. So many people hate like episode 1 of Phantom Menace and all that. And it's fine. It's not a good movie. But for me personally, I have a connection to it based on pure nostalgia.
Right.
Whereas like people who grew up in the 80s don't. And they hate them because they have a better connection of the original Star Wars movies. Yeah. However, they do have connections to pretty shitty movies in the 80s that I could say the same thing to them. They could be like, that movie's amazing. What are you talking about? And I'm like, no, it isn't. You're nostalgic about it. And that's why you like it. And then when I say episode 1 is cool, I enjoy it, they're like, you're an idiot. You're a drunk. You're stupid. And I'm like, really? Or is it just nostalgia for me?
Right.
Same thing, bro. Well, Guess what? You see what I'm saying? Like so many people like look down on you for like, oh, how could you like that movie? And I'm like, dude, it's nostalgia. I was 8 when I saw it. You were 8 when you saw this shitty 80s movie. Yeah. So it's like, like, shut up and grow up, please.
Right. No, I 150% agree.
It's all nostalgia, man.
Like that's why I feel very passionate when I talk about things like Stranger Things, not really loving the first season as much, or I know we had that whole thing where we were doing the trailer reactions at Comic-Con, and like every trailer was like 80s, 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 and we're just like, isn't it a little weird that all of them are so nostalgic and motherfuckers are like, we talking about if it's set in the 80s, of course it's gonna, like all that kind of, I don't know.
People are like, it's amazing. What are you talking about? I'm like, it's really not. It's really not amazing, man. No,
so
sorry.
To me that's whack. But so that whole big gap is where, because nobody in film school is gonna teach that, and nobody in like your present generation like now is going to be talking about it.
Or they don't care about it.
Yeah, and that's
they're not good.
That's what's tough for me, like back when I was doing a lot of Schmodown, man. It was like, that was all.
Don't get me started. That's all it is. It's like, how can you not know this answer? And I'm like, because the movie's shit, and because you like it because it's a fun movie that you grew up with when you were a kid. That's why.
Yeah.
And I hate it when people are like, how could you not know? Because guess what? That movie's not great, bro. It's not.
Right.
I don't know. It gets me mad when people are like that, when they're just like, how can you not know this? And I'm like, how could I not know the shitty movie that everyone's nostalgia about? And
Right.
even though it's shitty,
Right.
because it's shitty.
Right. Next question's coming from Chris Alex Coase, who writes, "What's your opinion on the way a studio should collaborate with a director? Should they be left to articulate their vision, or should the studio hold the reins in case the director goes overboard? We've seen both scenarios play out with mixed results."
Well, I mean, it's always going to go back to budget, right? That's why the reason why Blumhouse succeeds so much is because they let their directors do the vision they want to do, but they also give the directors no money to make the movie. Like, a lot of people forget that. A lot of people are like, well, Blumhouse lets the directors do whatever they want. And it's like, that's true, and it usually succeeds. However, he doesn't really give them a lot of money. And I'm sure that the directors are like, hey, can I have a little more? And he's like, no, I'm Jason Blumhouse. You're not going to have any more. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it really is dependent on how much money. Whereas, like, if a studio gives more money, $150 million budget, $140 million budget, or something like that, they're going to be giving you a ton of notes, a ton of feedback, a ton of changes, because they have more thoughts and feelings when it's a bigger investment. That's how everything is in life.
Well, it really is. To me, collaboration is the key word here. Like, the studio and the director has to work together. And when that relationship is good and when it works, we see great results, great products. And even, we talk about, the big films like, Justice League and all that stuff having all those problems. But when you really look at it, a lot of times it is a small director working with the studio, having kind of the same kind of vision. We don't hear troubling reports coming out of movies like King Kong or San Andreas or Rampage, because there's an understanding, like they know. And once you hit a certain degree of pedigree, like when you're a Nolan or when you're a Spielberg or whatever, they just, of course, you're gonna like run it the way you want to. I mean, literally with Dunkirk, Nolan was just like, give me 20 minutes to put in my pocket, 20 million put in my pocket, 100 million for the budget, and we'll just roll. Like, that's how. And they just let him do him. And of course, it's kind of a commercial film in its terms that it's about war and it's all that stuff, but it's actually kind of a big budget experimental film in terms of like the editing and all that stuff. So to me, that that's really where it comes down to.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is very much a collaboration, and that should be said. But I just feel like, trust the filmmaker that you hire. That's the biggest keyword. If you hired him, it's because you trust him.
Right.
If you hired them, trust that their vision that they pitched you. Because guess what? You go to pitch meetings and you pitch a movie. That if they pitched you on a movie that you signed off on, trust that they'll make that movie.
Right.
That's my thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question coming from Kimberly Grosser, who writes, "What kind of movie would you go to watch by yourself?" I watch all movies by myself. So
and that was our podcast. Maybe we can pull up one more.
Let's see here.
I can answer that one though.
Yeah.
What kind of movies I watch by myself? Movies that my friends don't want to go see.
Really? Okay.
I mean, but that's the definition of watching it by yourself, right? Is that you don't go with friends to go watch the movie.
Right.
So I guess a movie that none of my friends want to see. What's crazy is that I used to struggle to find friends to watch indie movies with. I used to watch indie movies by myself, like mainly 2 years ago, right?
Right.
But ever since I started working, there was a buddy of mine at work. His name is Rob, and he's like an indie movie fan, like an indie movie aficionado, like kind of like I am. So it's so much easier when I say, "Hey, want to go see Lady Bird? Want to go see Three Billboards? Want to go see this one? Want to go see that one?" Like we go and watch indie movies at the ArcLight.
Right.
Shout out to the ArcLight. And we always, every time they come out, right away, we're the first ones in line. We pay our ticket, and we're always passionate to support indie movies. Whereas before, most of my friends were like, "It's not a superhero movie. Well, I'm not gonna see it, bro. I'm not gonna pay money to see that."
Right.
And I'm like, "All right, cool. And I guess that's cool. I'll go watch it by myself." But now with my buddy Rob, it's cool that I can go watch indie movies first thing when they come out at the ArcLight. So
yeah, no, that's dope. I mean, I'm kind of just I have a very weird schedule a lot of times. So like especially with school, I go. Most of my classes are at night, so I don't go. If I go, I'd probably have to go like early in the day or like on a Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. So that's really weird, but I don't know.
Good deal.
Yeah.
All right, one more.
We could do one more. We could do one more.
Come on, man.
All right. We have one from Brian.
Two for the fans.
Yeah, we have one from Brian here. He says, "Love you guys' show. I guess he's talking about Justice League in particular.
Sure.
He says, don't know if reshoots are mandatory in the business, but think it proves there should be less of them. Thought it was okay, which was disappointing to me. Didn't hate it as much. Didn't hate it, just all right. 6 out of 10, C+. Hashtag the meaning of."
Oh, damn. Hashtag the meaning of.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys use that hashtag.
Right.
What was the first part he said?
He loves the show. He doesn't know if I guess
reshoots
are.
Reshoots are pretty standard. They're pretty
Right.
standard for a massive blockbuster.
Right.
Star Wars always gonna have reshoots. Marvel movies are always gonna have reshoots, or always have reshoots scheduled. Not necessarily use them, but they're always gonna have them scheduled.
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with reshoots. I think they should just be used when necessary, is the main thing, and be used to add to the story and not necessarily to erase what you initially had.
Right. I mean, what it really is, and if you've worked and shot things on your own, you'll know, like, a lot of times you'll be shooting something, you'll have it and you'll edit it, and the editing will turn out just a little bit different, and a little, you want to do something with a scene that you're trying to do in editing, but just because the way you shot it might not have worked. And that's what reshoots are supposed to be for.
Sure.
Like those little moments, like a little eye twitch or something that messes up a take, or a movement or something that throws it off. You could just do, like, really a purpose of reshoots is taking note of that shot, redoing that setup for maybe like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then moving on to the next thing. And that's essentially what reshoots are. So that's why a lot of big movies, like Avengers or every Marvel movie, has tons of reshoots. But that's because they're just focusing on fixing those little tiny adjustments or little tiny things, or maybe getting a recomposition for a visual effect shot or something like that. But when you're actually using those shoots to, like, change story and tone and all that stuff, maybe that's when it becomes a little too much.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to be kind of careful.
And that's what we saw in Justice League as well. But then again, that was a different circumstances. And again, we understand the circumstances, but I just don't feel like changing a vision of what you initially shot is also what you shouldn't do in a reshoot, which is what they did with Snyder's Justice League. And yeah, that's pretty much the end of our podcast for this time. Hopefully you guys appreciated that. We took your questions. We love taking your guys' questions. If you guys have more questions, leave us more questions, because we will probably answer them on next week's episode of the Meaning of Podcast. But since that's pretty much the end of it, I'm Ace.
It's RB3.
That was the Meaning of Podcast. Peace out, guys.